Transmission. It is November 14th, 2024. It is 2300 hours. Is anybody out there? This is the Blue Iron Lion broadcasting from somewhere. I was looking up at the night sky where the stars should be, and my mind started to wander a bit. You've often heard me mention, those of you out there have often heard me mention or alluding to the esoteric. And so this one is going to be for my more metaphysical crowd out there. You know, hopefully it resonates with some, since most people out there are more attuned to the mainstream. I would like to think of this broadcast as my contribution to the great work in terms of waking people up. My esoteric journey began about a decade ago when I started questioning religion. It all started with a simple question. If someone in one part of the world is raised to believe and die for one faith, and another person in a different part of the world is raised to believe and die for a completely different faith, who is right? I reasoned then that all religious beliefs must be part of a larger whole, but purposely separated. Growing up in the Catholic Church, I naturally had my own questions, as many children do. How many of you out there remember asking the questions that got the "don't question God" response? I want to tread carefully here, not because I doubt what I know, but because I respect the deeply held beliefs that give others their hope and meaning. So this broadcast is more for those of you out there who may already have some knowledge beyond religion. Over the years, I've researched a variety of topics, from the origins of the Bible to the ancient texts that predate that, like the Sumerian writings and the Epic of Gilgamesh, to the Great Pyramids, the Anunnaki, you name it, up to concepts like reincarnation, the soul trap, and more. I've identified common denominators across these sources and later related them to my own, as well as other shared life experiences. And from this, I've developed personal absolutes, truths I've proven to myself, as well as strong theories that for me are not yet absolute, but in my opinion, highly probable. For instance, in my reality, the soul undeniably exists outside the body. I've proven this through experiences I won't detail in the interest of time. But how do I make the following understandings accessible without offending the rigidly religious, or those that would defend their beliefs fiercely to the death even? I had the privilege of growing up in the 80s, memorable time, but also the epitome, the zenith of mainstream programming. The propaganda machine, you know. Back in the day when we would have thought Homelander was Superman. You know, the old government knows what's best for you and has your best interest in mind type dribble. Back then, ideas like the soul or out-of-body experiences were often dismissed as hallucinations, even though they aligned with ancient wisdom. As far as the mainstream, it was all just science fiction, which also happened to fuel some great movies. Did you know that the concept for a Nightmare on Elm Street was inspired by reports from the late 70s, early 80s of over 100 young, healthy men from Southeast Asia who mysteriously died in their sleep under unexplained circumstances after experiencing intense nightmares? Did you know that the Force in Star Wars drew heavily from esoteric principles rooted in ancient teachings, universal truths about balance and the cosmic law? Did you know that Project Stargate was a secret U.S. government initiative in the 1970s and 80s aimed at studying the psychic abilities to gather intelligence by remote viewing? I feel the show Stranger Things was loosely based on that, or MK Ultra, one of the two from earlier. It has been said that these movies, sci-fi, often hint at hidden truths in plain sight, almost like a game of sorts. In fact, the same teachings that align with the hidden knowledge of figures like Jesus emphasize some pretty liberating spiritual truths, but it challenged the system. So, of course, there was persecution for sharing that wisdom. The medieval era were especially brutal regarding this. After all, you can't have the established religious political system challenged by wisdom that could empower the people. In this esoteric reflection, I was contemplating what to focus on out of all the concepts out there. I'm still learning as I go, but I do surprise myself with what I do know from time to time. What I want to touch on now is about cosmic energy, also known as divine energy, the force that encompasses all things. Call it whatever makes you feel comfortable. God, the absolute energy that we all came from. My understanding of cosmic energy, based on my own experience over the years, is that we are all fractals of this energy, parts of the greater whole. Back in the day when walking past an outside sermon in Brooklyn conducted by the 5% Nation to a sidewalk audience, I've often heard, "You're a god," or "Did you know that you were God?" And I'd sarcastically think to myself, I am? Well, gee, these utility bills read otherwise. I didn't fully grasp the understanding. And it wasn't just them. I would later see this repeat itself throughout as the internet took hold, not specific to just one source, but that we as human beings were divine. But see, if you don't know yourself and you think that all there is to you is the human body, then that's where it ends for you. All right? It's just everything that makes up who you are is inside of your brain. And when you die, that's it. You pass all your information to your children, if you have any. But for the rest of us who has a soul, see it not as your body containing one, but as your soul being you, yourself, infinite and sovereign, limitless in its natural state, but for whatever reason, whether for growth, captivity, or both, severely limited to the five senses. You know, our intentions filtered through the nuances of the brain and physiology, bound by a dense physical version of ourselves that is confined to the laws of gravity, a limiting capacitor of your actual universal fractal of godlike expression, to which we're not supposed to know that here. I've once gone nearly 120 days practicing vital energy retention with no release, if you catch my drift. It was a bid to increase my testosterone levels, which did show a decent increase from where it was before, according to the lab results. Anyhow, I noticed that the longer I maintained this practice, off and on, is the more intense and refined my ability to feel that energy became. Years of this, along with mindfulness, and I began to experience cosmic energy, Kundalini rising. It started to feel present, not just within me, but all around me, like an ocean. And now this once subtle energy has become almost tangible. It's fascinating how concepts once dismissed as mumbo-jumbo are now gaining recognition. Science, for those paying attention, seems to be converging with spirituality, creating a bridge between the two worlds. And topics like the biofield, the quantum Zeno effect, quantum entanglement, epigenetics, neuroplasticity. It is said that all magic is science that has not yet been explained. The heart generates an electromagnetic field. It doesn't just pump blood. Adept spiritualists make claims that the heart connects the soul through the electromagnetism, and that the soul connects through the nervous system. This body in its design is perfectly suited for this environment. Everything in the universe, including the physical laws that govern it, appears to be mathematically and geometrically structured. You have physicists suggesting that the universe is intricately designed to support life. It's like we're living in some type of computer system, right? A construct. Well, it also seems that this entire construct is designed to limit the potential of our souls. We're constantly answering to something, often out of fear. If you don't pay your bills, your lights get cut off. If you don't pay rent or your mortgage, you could end up on the streets. You're always answering to authority, and the system itself is hierarchical in nature. It's structured this way. I'm going to take a step further and suggest that the prevalence of porn, masturbation, and sexualization in our society, which is encouraged by the system, is designed to prevent people from allowing their vital energy to build up. The goal is to stop individuals from tapping into their deeper connection to cosmic energy. Now, cosmic energy is always present within us, but it's like this. As it starts to build, the body transforms that energy into the urge for release, which is then expelled. This keeps you in a state where the cosmic energy is just enough to sustain your physical being and serve its biological purpose, such as reproduction or release. It's almost as if our system was designed with the exceptional foresight to achieve its intended goal. Look, like on a physical level, we're having the human experience. So in no way, shape, or form am I suggesting to wear a robe and disappear into a cave, forever refraining from the indulgences of life. I'm still a man, but balance. Perhaps dedication initially, for a time, and then balance. However you go about it, that's your world. I'm going to try not to offend any of my religious folk out there. And so I hope that if you're worshiping, it's out of love, not fear. Like as a child, I was taught that without worshiping God, I'd face eternal damnation. But a sovereign soul cannot be trapped where it doesn't choose to be. It's all about what we've been taught to believe about reality. This world is designed to control that reality. And it's easier to do when we're in this physical form and indoctrinated. So what is the point of all of this? What am I getting at? Well, once you realize that the mainstream isn't your ally, that its purpose is to deceive you in every aspect of life, you start to gain a clearer understanding and ultimately feel more empowered. Now, if I or you were to share this with someone deeply religious, they might view all of that as blasphemy. The idea that you have the power within you, independent of any outside authority, would be hard for them to grasp. But think about it. If you believe that you're part of something universal, a fractal of God, do you really think God would leave you subjugated? Would you do that to your own children? Of course not. Only a few outliers might behave that way, but it's not the way of the divine. It's not the way of love that an entity would have for a consciousness that came from it. And for example, when you look at the map of consciousness created by, I think, Dr. David Hawkins, you'll see that the majority of people are operating under a survival paradigm. About 85% of the global population. This just so happens to align with the division between the haves and have-nots. But now we're diving into vibrations and frequencies. You have no idea the power you have. It's like the truth is the power has always been within you. When you reach out to God, or Buddha, Allah, or whatever you consider the source, the all, you're activating the connection that was always there. When your conviction is strong, when you can't take the burden anymore and you call out and relief comes, it feels like a divine answer, but that power came from within you. It's not about the name you use. It's about the depth of belief and the alignment of your will. The universal all, by whatever name, is always accessible because it's part of you. Or call it a gift from God to you. This realization runs deep, man. This has happened to me before. I've now a broader understanding of what God is, but I tread lightly on my interpretation. It is not my intention to take away what keeps people grounded, as everyone is on their own journey. For me personally, with what I've come to understand, I was able to pause a kind of hell that one can experience in this life, at least for now. It all comes down to vibrations and frequencies, concepts I've heard about countless times, but only recently started to truly grasp. And so a note of caution. I believe that I brought a sort of hell upon myself by misusing vibrations and frequencies. Due to the nature of this construct, most of the population already operates in a survival mindset. And as I raised my cosmic energy through energy retention, things were insightful in the beginning, but eventually went from bad to worse. I didn't realize that this reality mirrors our internal state. So with a powerful energy field, but a mindset rooted in greed and desperation, it's like I amplified my negative circumstances. That's just my belief, but it showed me the importance of aligning energy with mindset. Trial and error. In hindsight, I'd have done it again, or I wouldn't have learned, but I never want to make that error again going forward. Learn from my mistake if this applies. If you even know what I'm talking about. This stuff. See, when I first learned about these ideas, I thought, okay, but how does this help me here and now? I still have bills to pay, responsibilities to manage, and life to live. What good is all of this knowledge if it doesn't make my day-to-day life any easier? Sure, it might help me when I'm old and looking back, but what about right now? I used to find all the talk about positive thinking and vibrations frustrating. It felt intangible, like empty advice. I needed something real, something practical. But once you start to understand who you really are, the concepts of vibration and frequency begins to make sense. You realize there's more to the positive versus negative mindset than you initially thought. I was skeptical too. I didn't believe thinking positively would make any real difference. Yet, over time, as I consciously worked on maintaining a higher vibration, I started noticing changes. That's the key. It's not just feeling good for a moment, right? It's a habit. It's a mindset. But even when things felt impossibly dark, solutions began appearing out of nowhere, as if by magic once I adapted to this. Now, I'm not fully where I want to be yet, but I've escaped that personal hell, at least for now, right? As I said before, I've been on this path for years, but the vibrational part of the puzzle I'm only grasping very recently. I guess I learn at my own pace. Time will tell as I continue to research this path. So far, what I've got is that the power of the mind is far more tangible than we often realize. For anyone out there who cared to listen, end transmission.